This morning's title is titled Social Media, and we'll be focusing on media use within Christianity. Now, when I say social media, we tend to think about our phones and the internet, right? Facebook, Instagram, texting, Snapchat, so on and so forth. We tend to think that social media is new to us and our culture since the internet happened in the 90s, right? But that's a great misconception. In fact, the earliest forms of media communication date back to 550 BC, where we find forms of postal services, letters, and we still use those today. This picture here is the world's oldest functioning post office. It has been running since 1712. In 1972, the telegraph was invented, and much more sophisticated telegraphs are used today. In 1865, the pneumatic post was invented, and that's still used today as well. It's an air pressure system with an underground tube system that quickly carries letters from place to place. We know that today as the drive-through at the bank, but it used to be a postal thing. And in 1890 and 1891, the phone and the radio were invented. We all know about phones, right? Most of you are on one. No, I'm playing. And we know what they are, and we still use them today. And this list is far too long to keep going, and this is not a history lesson on social media. But I tell you this so that we can have a common understanding that social media is not new to our lifetime. Yes, the availability and the vastness and the speed of it is new in our lifetime, but it's no means new to our culture. In fact, also the Bible is a type of social media, especially the Gospels. They were being written so that people could know exactly what was happening. What do we call those people? Reporters. Except we can trust the ones that wrote the Bible. So communication by means of media, no matter how primitive it might be, is something all people, including Christians, have dealt with in one way or another. And now more than ever, we deal with social media through the internet and our phones. Our news, our politics, our reading material, shopping, our expression of thought, mass communication of in every way. All these things are tied and found on our social media. It permeates our culture. I use social media. 90% of you in here probably use it. Billions of people all over the world use it. So I believe it's something that the church should address. So that led me to ask myself a question. Does the Bible say anything about social media? So I typed that question into Google, like I do with most of my questions, and a very interesting Bible verse came up. 1 Timothy 5:13 says, "Besides that, they learn to be idlers, going about from house to house, and not only idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying what they should not." Now, this verse is not about social media in particular. In this verse to Timothy, Paul is telling Timothy how young widows should act lest they become these things. But in this verse alone, there are three nouns that Paul uses as things that God does not want us to be: idlers, gossips, and busybodies. In short, people saying things that they shouldn't be. All these acts that benefit me and nobody around. And so just by way of biblical application, if Paul says that God doesn't want the widows to act that way, then we probably shouldn't be acting in those ways, correct? And unfortunately, social media seems to be the focus of so much of me. So much, in fact, that I believe it is a stumbling block to the Christian community now. So today I want us to look at how Christians should act online based upon the three nouns that are mentioned in 1 Timothy. The first one being an idler. An idler is a habitually lazy person. Synonyms include loafer, ne'er-do-well, a good-for-nothing. And in terms of social media, they are the ones who share something before doing the research to make sure it's true. The ones who regurgitate opinions and feelings as if they are facts. The ones who say something and their only intention is to get a response. These people exist, and yes, they exist in the church. I read their posts and their blogs all the time. The most unfortunate thing is that a lot of them are Christians. And at the time I wrote this, I have 313 friends on Facebook, and about 75% of those people are from the church community, this church all over. And if they're not from here, they're from somewhere else. About 75% of 313 is 235 people. I rounded up so we didn't have little legs running around. You would think that my Facebook feed would be a place of comfort from the Christian community, but it's not. It's the opposite. I hate to say it, but there are people in the Facebook or in the Christian community that I used to hold in high respect until I got on social media or became friends with them. And I see how they act online, and I don't have much of a high regard for them anymore. And I'm not trying to be mean, it's the truth. And I know I'm not the only one who sees it going on. And I'm telling you, it's a problem in the church. Not because of me, or because of Marty, or Mike, or our elders. It's a problem because we are supposed to be representatives of Christ in every aspect of our lives. And many mature and faithful Christians do not remember this when they are on their social media accounts. You see, if you're turning me away from you with your post or your remarks or your shares, then how many people who don't know you or aren't familiar with the church and Christianity, how many of them are you turning away with what you say? Are we representing Christ the way that we should be online? Because I promise you, folks, if we are claiming to be Christians, then we are representing Him, whether it be online or offline. 2 Corinthians 5:20 says, "Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, God making His appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God." The next noun that Paul uses is gossip. Gossip is casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. Does that sound like anything we ever hear on our phones or on the social media? All forms. We hear it on TV, we read it. In fact, it's the truth nowadays, right? But don't worry, you have your own truth and I have mine. We live in a culture where every single person who has the ability to form a thought can now broadcast that thought to the world at the touch of a button. The world isn't getting more evil, people. The evil in the world can now be heard loud and clear. And Christians should be combating it, not joining in. If we say something, if we as Christians say something without it knowing to be 100% true, it is gossip. So what are we saying on our social media accounts? Is it true? Are you fact-checking yourself? We ought to be. If it is, great. But then ask yourself, should you be saying it? I sound like my dad. If we don't know it's true, why take the chance? Why intentionally put something up that is questionable? If not for the sake of our reputation, for the sake of not making Christ look bad. Have you ever noticed that when one Christian does something, all of us get blamed for it? One of the saddest realizations of a gossiping Christian is this. When you post false information, everything else you say is taken at a loss of credit. What does that look like then when you are talking to somebody about the gospel or about Jesus? I don't want to listen to somebody who can't not tell a lie on the things that don't pertain to my salvation. Why would I listen to somebody who lies, who gossips? James 1, 26 through 27. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unsustained from the world. Unstained, I'm sorry. All right. Point number 3, I'm almost done. The last noun or people that Paul mentions are busybodies, a meddling or prying person. And I think social media is the best place to find a busybody. Where else in the world can we go and be expected to put our 2 cents into things that don't pertain to us? Our social media platforms, of course. Like this, comment on that, share this, be in somebody else's business all the time. Let's post our business for all to see all the time. I'm guilty of it. And even when you want to stay out of people's business, people get into ours and they bring you up. In fact, that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I have a friend from a long time ago. Posted a picture of me and tagged me in it. I was holding a young lady and a beer and flipping off the camera. That's not who I am anymore. But I was tagged in it and it was up for 15 hours on my social media. And anybody who could see it, until I got her to take it down, hopefully, that's not who I am anymore. Social media is a dangerous place sometimes. And I don't know if you know this, but if you comment on a post or are tagged, that also shares to your friends. And then all your friends know what you're saying or what you're liking and commenting on, which I find interesting. Because I've seen posts where Christians are supporting the death of the president. I've seen Christians in support of a civil war within our own country and the death of our fellow countrymen. What a fantastic way to spend our time on this earth. What a great Christian example to be. What are we doing? First Peter 4:15. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or an evildoer or as a meddler. At this point in the lesson, I was going to have a section of screenshots, from the Christians within our community and what they've posted. Good, strong Christian people in person, but who share vulgarities and spread hate and division on social media. Unfortunately, people in here, but I prayed and decided against it. I was going to then use fellow Christians from all around the globe. Again, I prayed and I decided against that because my goal is not to add insult to injury, but to make us evaluate what we are saying as Christians. So we'll reach the conclusion. So far, we've learned 3 nouns or types of people that God does not want his people to be: idlers, gossips, and busybodies. These are selfish, me types of people. Good Christians. They are everywhere. We are especially on social media. And so as we come to a close, I have one conclusion point for us. Stop it. Quit. Because this is what the world sees. Christianity is more than a status, or what you're doing that day, or a picture, a selfie. Look at a Jesus today. Christianity is a lifestyle. So if we are proclaiming Christians, let us not be meddling on social media. Peter puts meddlers in with thieves and murderers. It's serious business, people. Stay in your own business. If we are proclaiming Christians gossiping on social media, stop it. We should already know that gossiping is wrong. We should know that. We're the Bible people. Proverbs says, even the fool is considered wise when he is silent. And a lot of us, even myself, need to be silent. If we are proclaiming Christians being good for nothing on social media, stop it. Social media is not the place to start fights. It is not the place to spread information that we haven't researched. It is not the place for our vulgarities. And by the way, you may not have written that word or that post, but if you shared it, you're just as guilty, I'm just as guilty, as if we had actually written it. Look, we can't be perfect. Some people will never come to church, listen to a minister read their Bible. They're reading your life and watching how you live. Be the light God called you to be. Things like this are posted on people's Facebooks and Instagrams and everything all the time. But do we believe it? Or are you just saying it so you can show somebody that you churched today? I'm not perfect. You can go look. Google me. I'm not perfect. I got rid of my Facebook when Fawn was born because I couldn't control myself. I recently had to get it again for work, and it's depressing to see how the Christian community chooses to use social media. And it's no wonder why people don't trust God when they look at what we do. If you can't control yourself, delete your accounts. Change your privacy settings. Do something, but make an intentional effort to change, because it's not just me who's affected by what we post and what we share. It's the community in Christ that is affected, because we are ambassadors. And when we don't do that, we join Satan's side and we start fighting against God. So stop. If social media controls your actions, stop it. Not just for the sake of you or us individually, but for the sake of the God that we campaign against when we use it improperly. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, "And to aspire to live quietly, and to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands as we instructed you." And if we can't stop, the Bible speaks to that as well. 2 Thessalonians 3:6-7 says, "Now we command you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from any brother who is walking in idleness and not in accord with the tradition that you received from us. For you yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, because we were not idle when we were with you." I don't know about you, but I love fellowshipping with you guys. I don't want to stop. I like traveling and fellowshipping with Christians all over the United States. I don't want to stop doing that. But we're told not to hang out with those people if they act that way. So I plead with you to stop. I know what God expects. You know what God expects. So let us as Christians use the tool that is social media, not just responsibly, but as if every single word we say or share is a reflection of what we are to be. Because it is. The way we live our lives is vital to our relationship in Jesus Christ. So if you need to learn how to live in His ways, or maybe brush up your understanding of His expectations, if you'd like to be baptized, we have water. Please come forward and let us help. If you're not comfortable coming forward, please get with somebody you are comfortable with, because salvation is not something to let slide by. So please, if you have any need today, come forward as we stand and as we sing.